Hello, guys. Hello. Welcome to the Mobupps Podcast. It's the new episode. As I mentioned in the previous episode in December, we will have even more amazing guests. And today we will start with Dave Valentine, owner of 8 different companies. And I don't know how he does that because I barely maintain one job. And he was recently featured in Forbes and added 1 billion in total revenue to companies like Target, Real Simple, and many other SMBs. Hi, Dave. Thank you for being with us today.
Excited to be here, Anton. Thanks for having me on, brother.
So the first question is a little bit personal. So my grandma always told me, if you wake up and you see yourself in the Forbes, this means you can sleep for another hour. But if you don't, then go and work as early as you can. Is this true, Dave?
Ah, yeah, I think that even the people that find themselves in Forbes typically got there because they worked really hard. Whether they woke up early or stayed up late doesn't matter. Um, the people that find themselves in Forbes stay in Forbes because they keep working hard. So there's some truth to it in that there's value in taking a victory lap, as it were, and saying, "Hey, I made it. I achieved the
Yeah.
goal." And there's also a very realistic feeling of even though I've hit the goal, I still have more to achieve. So I still keep working hard to hit those goals.
Dave, I really hoped that you would say that when I will find myself there, well, I hope so. I can sleep for another hour, but now I'm even more upset. I'll have to work even more, as I suspected, as I suspected.
Yep.
So, Dave, could you introduce yourself, share your journey from juggling family life and business consultancy to starting Rethink and the challenges you face in balancing professional success and personal well-being during this transition? If these things are possible simultaneously, so just tell us.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, I started my first grown-up business in 2013. It was an ad agency, and I had been doing marketing and advertising in-house for companies since I was actually a senior in high school. And so I was very familiar with it. And of course, I regale my staff with stories of running Friendster and MySpace, and they go, "What?" Or when I tell them that you had to text in your tweets because it was pre-smartphones. It
Yeah,
really
yeah,
blows their
you
mind.
had to send a text message, actually.
That's
A lot of
right.
people don't know that. Yeah.
It's true. And so I was doing marketing back then. And yeah, so I started my first company when I was 25. And again, I knew how to do marketing. I didn't know how to start a company. I didn't know how to run a company. I didn't know any of that stuff. So I was really starting just going, okay, I guess I'm going to figure this out. And in the course of figuring it out, built a pretty successful agency in about 4 years' time. We went from zero to doing over $1 million in revenue in a year. And I went to a doctor because I was about to turn 30, and my wife was like, "Hey, we have a daughter, we have a son on the way," or I guess we had both of them at the time. We had, 2 kids. Uh, we kind of would like to keep you around. Maybe you should go get a checkup. And so I went to the doctor, and he said, did some tests, came back a week later, and he said, "Hey, Dave, how do you know when you're going to have a heart attack?" And I was like, "I don't get the question, doc." He goes, "You don't know that you're going to have a heart attack. You just have one." And I was like, "Okay." He said, we've tested 4,500 people. You're the most stressed out person we've ever tested. Now, this was in a major metropolitan area, the 13th largest metro area, the 13th biggest city in the United States, the fourth biggest metro area. And so lots of people live there. Lots of people are being tested. Here I am, 30 years old, and I'm the most in danger of having a heart attack. And so he basically said, look, if you don't change how you're engaging with your business, how you're engaging with your life, you're not going to see 40. So I started to do some things, Anton, that made my life get bigger. And I really, when I did those first 3 days, but I just watched myself, because I think that, and I'm sure that people, B2B operators listening to this, they're all in a very similar boat of there's always another sale to be made, another fire to be put out. You're working with clients. They're not just customers. It's a bigger deal. Everybody's really, really valuable. And so for those first 3 days, I just started taking inventory. And here's what I realized, some things that came to mind. I would sit at my desk from about 7 until 5:30 or 6 p.m. I'd get up, I'd have dinner with the family, I'd put the kids down, and then from about 8 until 10 every day I would work. So essentially working like a 7 to 8 o'clock shift. So like a 13-hour shift every single day. And there were stories, honestly, Anton, of crazy things that I did in order to keep the business going. And so anyways, I took those first 3 days and I went, what are you doing? And I started to notice a few things. Number one, I wasn't moving a whole lot. So I was like, all right, every day I need to go walk for 5 minutes. Why 5 minutes? Anything over 5 minutes is bonus, but I at least need to get out of my chair, go outside and go walk. Could be at 10 o'clock at night, doesn't matter. Just get out of the house, go walk, right? If I did 30, fantastic. The second thing was I needed to drink at least 1 glass of water, which I know sounds like a low bar, but at the time, for 3 days in a row after I had that conversation, I realized that I'd go from drinking coffee and tea to drinking alcohol at night to calm down. And so,
Yeah, and both of these things are alkaloids in chemistry. So
right?
basically, it's the same thing. It just works a little bit differently, but it's the same thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so I started to realize, oh my gosh, I'm not taking care of myself. So I really had 2 rules 3 days after that initial conversation. One was to take a walk for 5 minutes. The other one was to drink at least 1 glass of water. Now, most days, I'd go for a 30-minute walk. I'd go for 45 minutes. I would have 5 glasses of water. But there would be days, especially early on, where it was like, it's 10:30. I've been working all day. I've been in meetings. I haven't stopped. So then I'd go, okay, dude, you're exhausted, but go get your 5-minute walk in and pound your glass of water and go to sleep. And so is building these new habits that really started to bring about kind of a life change for me, but it took a lot of time. And the other thing that happened too, Anton, was I really started to evaluate how can I run my businesses differently. I only had one at the time. How can I run my business differently so that I'm not stressed out, so that it's not all on me, so that I'm not the guru? And that really started to change the dynamic of how we move forward.
This is so important. I believe that this is more important than everything we will talk about later, because without this, you can't achieve anything. You will basically, yeah, you will die in your 40s. And I don't remember where I actually heard this, but someone said, it's a really cheesy phrase, but it works. Like someone said, if you take care of yourself, you live your life in HD. If you don't, you live your life in low quality. Basically, it's the same life, but the quality of it is different. And it kind of, yeah, clicked with me too. This is why, yeah, I believe I had a very similar path without your achievements though, but still, path is very similar. So inside, we have to mention Forbes more because, you know, it's a huge magnet for the people. You've been recognized by Forbes. You should be proud though. So
Oh, thank you.
yeah. So Forbes being featured in Forbes is a remarkable achievement. Just, you know, if you have your name there, without description, it's already good. But can you share key insights from this experience and discuss the strategies that led to generating this enormous amount of money? It's about 1 billion in revenue for the huge companies we've mentioned in the beginning.
Yeah, so yeah, a few different things there. So let's talk about Forbes first. So
Yeah.
Forbes, you know, the way that works best when you're not Elon Musk, when you're not running Apple, is that you want to hire a good PR firm, and they're going to
Yeah.
pitch you and give different angles and different spin, and they're going to talk about you in different ways. And I hired a PR firm that ended up helping me get into Forbes, and the way that they presented it was, hey, listen, we're going to help you get into Forbes. If we can't help you get there, we'll get you into some other spots that in their aggregate, you know, are equal to Forbes value.
Yeah.
And so they did a great job. They didn't just get me in Forbes, they also got me an entrepreneur and a number of other spots. And so, you know, kind of the tactic with that was really starting to get me out there more on a regular basis on podcasts and highlighting some of the things that I'd been doing in more spots, you know, doing what I'm doing right here with you, Anton, which is
Yeah.
coming and sharing my expertise for free with people. And what that started to do was just drive a different level of engagement, right? And so when I got into Forbes, most people think, oh, that's, you know, it's going to go gangbusters. The business is going to go crazy. We got some leads off it. The thing that it really did, Anton, more than anything, was it gave us credibility from the word go. So it helped us close more sales for every single business that I'm associated with because they could go read an article written about me in Forbes. And so it just became a way for us to have instant authority and credibility in a day and time where credibility and authority are more in danger than ever before. And so this whole thing of building your authority and building your personal brand, I wish that I would have been doing it 11 years ago. I really didn't start until a couple years ago. And, all I'm going to sound old. All the kids are doing it nowadays. Every teenager, 20-something thinks of themselves as a brand, and that's probably appropriate. We called it something different when you and I were coming up, Anton. We called it our resume. We called it our CV. It was our LinkedIn profile. We were trained, I think, mostly to not mess up our opportunities for work with what we put out on social media. And younger people, more often than people our age, although people our age are catching on to it, are actually using their expertise as a way to generate revenue, income, and job opportunities. So anyway, so Forbes was great because it really propelled our sales side, and we were able to leverage that to build authority. When it comes to some of the other questions you asked, some of the things that we just started to kind of intrinsically see was that we needed to build systems and processes so that I could get out of the day-to-day. And the more systems and processes I built, the more my time freed up, the better we got. Think about right now, if you're listening to this, you're an owner operator, how much of your day is in the minute details of what's going on. You're working in your business, not on it. The more you work on it, the better you become. Now, listen, that's not always true, but for most owner founders, it is true. They tend to be people that have big visions and big ideas and big dreams. And so as the org gets bigger, they get better. Again, that's not always true, but that typically is. The thing that needs to happen as you elevate is you need to find that integrator, using an entrepreneurial operating system term, EOS. It's one of my favorite things to talk about because it's so dang helpful. But you need to have that person that can take your vision and go execute it, and they get into the details so that you can stay above the fray and really handling kind of the top level stuff. So anyways, those are just some general thoughts on some of that.
Yeah, and I imagine this. You mentioned that this mention in Forbes helped you to close deals. I just imagine these negotiations when someone says, "You know what, we've been mentioned on Clutch," and you say, "Yeah, I'm on Forbes now," so like something like that. Yeah, it would work. It would work. I can see that. I can see that. Yeah, I totally believe that successful entrepreneurs are very much like method actors. When you react to the situation, you don't just only do the thing you're supposed to do. You also react to the environment and things that happening around, to the industry changes, and that's so important. So the things you mentioned, yeah, totally. It's very on point. Then you went to the podcast. And by the way, Dave, not only we all want to be mentioned, but in Forbes, but we don't do anything about that. Dave hired a PR company to do that, guys. That's the point. If you want to be somewhere, try doing something about it, right? So it's not happening just like that. You've done incredible work in order to achieve this.
Yeah, it rarely happens that Forbes picks up the phone, finds your contact number, and calls you.
Yeah.
That happens a few dozen times a year. They are producing dozens of articles a day. And so in order to be highlighted in some of that stuff, and I got to kind of talk with the PR firm and kind of understand their methods some, a lot of times they would be getting clients a mention where they'd be quoted 2 or 3 times in an overall article. The fact that there was an entire article written about me, they said, spoke to my expertise, my level of what was already going on. And you're right, Anton, like if you want something to happen and you don't know how to get there, I wanted to do a TED Talk. I wanted to do TED Talk. I hired a PR firm. I was like, "Hey guys, you get people onto TED Talks. Can you get me onto a TED Talk?" They're like, "Let's go through the process. What would you say? Well, guess what? This past May, I got to go give a TED Talk. That was incredible. It was a highlight of my life. I have no idea how to get into a TED conversation. But, a lot of the clients that we have helped over the year, we're either helping them with digital advertising, we're setting up systems for them on the marketing side that just generate consistent income. We're doing cold email outreach for them. These are all things that some of my firms have done to generate revenue for a number of these other clients. Hence why the $1 billion in attributable revenue plus. And it's different methods for different seasons, and it's different methods for different brands and different initiatives. But the reality is, people came to me as an expert. People come to you as an expert, Anton. And the point is to move the dial for them in some form or fashion to give them value.
And it's a simple advice, like most of the best advices. But if you want to achieve something, you have to try at least, right? You have to do something about it.
That's right.
So podcasts, as you mentioned, you've been a part of a lot of podcasts and even being a guest of podcasts like Growth Now Movement, Unstoppable CEO podcast. Which unique perspectives do you offer and give to the growing businesses that are not mentioned in Forbes right now, but who want to be there at this point? And what are the best advices you usually give?
Yeah, so one of the things that I tell organizations is that until they cross $3 million, they really need to view themselves as a sales and marketing organization that happens to be providing whatever service or product you're selling. The reason why I say that is I know I primarily work with marketing and advertising agency owners because I've owned 4 of those, exited 3 with multiple 7-figure exits on those, and I know how they operate. Right. And so a lot of times what ends up happening, only 3% of marketing agencies in the United States ever cross $1 million in revenue. Only 7% of all companies in the US, I don't know what it is in Canada, Anton, I'd be interested to know. Only 7% of US companies ever cross the 7-figure mark. So when you do that, it's a big deal, right? 3 out of 100, that's pretty impressive for agency owners. And so what I often see with them is they've networked their way to sales. And sometimes you can network your way to a very large company, right? I had a friend that was in the oil and gas business, and he networked his way to a $50 million a year business because he was selling renting large equipment that was costing 7 figures or 8 figures for every sale that they made. So it wasn't as impressive as it sounds because their net on that was a couple $1,000,000. But the premise is true here. You can refer your way pretty high up to about $3 million in revenue. But in order to really get where you want to go, you're going to need to become a sales and marketing organization. Here's what I mean by that. Where do your leads come from? Where do your new meetings come from for new business development? And then how well are you closing those? So I'll give you some examples of things that we did and how we leveraged the podcasts to really amplify what I'm saying here. So what we said was, hey, listen, we've got cold email as a lead generation source. This was for all my companies. It's still the best, y'all. I mean, like, I can generate as many new meetings for new business as I want out of cold email outreach still. It's always changing, just like every other digital marketing channel, and it's still very effective. So number 1, we're using cold email outreach. Number 2, we were using podcasts. Me as a guest on podcasts was generating leads, Anton. And I don't mean a couple, I mean dozens and dozens of leads every month. And what we found was it wasn't about being on the big podcasts like the Growth Now Movement, which has like 50,000 people downloading it per episode. Great conversation with Justin. Love that guy. I got 1 lead off of being on his podcast. I went to another podcast that only had a few hundred downloads per episode, but it was the exact right audience. Over a year after I was on that podcast, I was still generating leads. At the time of this recording, 57 different leads have come through that one podcast. We closed 22 deals, and it netted us a little over $90,000 in monthly recurring revenue from clients. That was one podcast. It was 45 minutes of my life. So we looked at where our leads are coming from. So we had cold email, podcast outreach, and then we LinkedIn outreach and cold calling were always something that we were doing. And then we also had a 4th one, which was our content generation.
Yeah, it's all about it's all about how relevant the audience is, right?
That's right.
And in this case, for example, yeah, I can totally relate because sometimes there are PR firms that say, let's give you more views, let's give you more followers, things like that. And then I'm checking my leads count per like last month, and I'm like, no, we're good. Like, we can close that much already. Like, so
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and so
So
so what we started to do with the podcast that I was a guest on is that anytime that someone would book a meeting with our sales team, they would get an automation. Hey, listen, before you show up to our call, I want you to check out a few things. Here's an article with our owner who is in Forbes. I have a link to it. Here's Dave on a podcast talking about how to grow your agency. Here's Dave in entrepreneur.com's podcast talking about how to scale any B2B company using cold email outreach, right? And so like they're getting this before they step into a call. So then when they step into the call, Anton, this was the thing that changed the game for this company. Our close rate was about 18% of all the calls that we booked, we would close. So that includes no-shows, that includes 50% plus dequalified people, like disqualified people. That was the total accumulation. If we booked 100 meetings, we knew we were going to close 18. The second thing that happened was this. We would one call close, 30-minute call, 96% of our calls that we closed, we would close in one call in 30 minutes because we made it so simple for everybody to get involved, and we told them exactly what was going to happen next. We had already built that authority previous to the call, so now it was easy for us in 30 minutes to have a sales conversation, and that's really what catalyzed a big growth for us. So I just wanted to hit that before we lost it.
Dave, I just want to say, what a power move. You had an automation and you sent basically everything to give a premise to your call, right? And yeah, it's
That's
a power move. Sounds great. And this is why I'm not surprised you've closed it in 30 minutes, because people basically knew everything they needed to know, right?
That's it.
Yeah,
Yep.
this is really great. So tell me more about marketing, and with your extensive experience in marketing, what underutilized strategies do you recommend? And as a mentor, what common pitfalls do you advise new entrepreneurs to avoid? Like, what would your like straight up marketing advice would be for people to not fail, basically?
So I always love to sit. So this is what I do with my clients. So right now, a lot of the work that I'm doing, Anton, is I'm a fractional chief revenue officer. So I'm kind of like sitting over marketing and sales, or I'm just a fractional CMO. So I'm just over the marketing side. And a lot of times what I sit down and do is I go, okay, Anton, you're an owner founder. Where do you want to be 5 years from now? You know, and 5 years seems like a long time. So people will say, I don't know. I'm like, well, dream. What do you want to be doing? You know, do you want to have this business still? Do you want to have sold it? Do you want to be able to work 2 hours a week? Like, what's your thought? And so people go, I think I want the business to be doing $1 million a month. Cool. What else? I only want to have to work, 16 hours a week. Awesome. What else? And so we just kind of go through the whole thing. And then I say, where are you right now? Well, we're doing, $500,000 in revenue. Okay. Big move from $500,000 a year in revenue to $1 million a month. Totally doable. So where are you getting your leads right now? And we start breaking it all down. Well, I get my leads through SEO. I get them through referral. I get them through this. Cool. We need to set up lead generation systems that are going to consistently generate 20 to 30 meetings a week. And they're like, what? That's great. No, we have to get there so that you can get to the point where you have enough opportunity that you get to turn clients and customers down. You get to say, no, you're not a good fit. No, I don't want to work with you because you're a jerk. No, whatever it is, right? You need more opportunities. The other thing that comes with that is that gets you out of sales faster so we can bring somebody else in to take over the sales, because you can't always be selling. Whatever you as the owner put your energy into, whether that's the service or product you're delivering, the sales, the finances, it will be 99% of the time, it will be the strongest part of your organization. So if you start focusing on sales, you will be great at sales, but you're probably going to have some issues losing clients on the back end. Not because the back end delivery isn't great, it just doesn't have your focus. There's a great story when Elon was really struggling with Tesla, and they only had weeks left of cash reserves.
Like 3 weeks, I remember the story, yeah.
Yeah, and he was sleeping in the office for a few hours a night. He was spending a week with each department. So literally he'd go to the stitching department and he'd say, guys, we need to stitch it like this. And then he'd go to the motor department. He'd say, guys, we need to put the battery and the motors like this. They need to work like that. And then he'd go work with the software engineer. I mean, like, he was spending time with every single department, helping them get where they needed to go. Now, here's what's Here's what's part of the thing that we need to remember. Elon didn't hire cheap talent. Elon hired really expensive, very talented people, and they still needed guidance. If you believe that you're ever going to get to a point where the team doesn't need your guidance and you're trying to go to the moon, not real. You can get to 12 million, you can get to 50 million probably, but there's a point in time where your genius has to come into play. So anyways, I say that to say, whenever I'm giving advice, I say reverse engineer where you want to go. How many leads do you need? How many sales do you need every single month, every single year in order to hit your goals? Then aim 50 to 100% higher than that. So if you're like, hey, I need to have 100 meetings a month, great. Then your real goal should be 200 a month. Because if you miss it by 50%, if you fail, then you're still going to overcome your goals.
Which means if you fail, you don't fail.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah. Versus if you're like, hey, I need 100 meetings and you only get 50, you're not going to hit your sales goals. Interesting stat from HubSpot. They always release a survey from B2B marketers, B2B sellers, and B2B buyers. They survey 100,000 of each every year. And basically what they found is if you have 50 or fewer, hear me on this, this is crazy to me, 50 or fewer sales meetings in a month, you have a 93% chance of missing your sales goal for the year. Most entrepreneurs I talk to, they're like, I had 1, I had 2, or the ones that are doing well, and I had 5 last week. And so there's this big gap. So then if you look at, okay, well, how many would I need to have in order to hit my goal? According to HubSpot's data, you would need to have 150 plus meetings in a month to inverse that statistic. You have a 93% chance of hitting your sales goal if you have 150 or more meetings a month. Why? Well, because honestly, you're having more opportunities, you're having more conversations, you're able to sell more, and it's really easy to be very calm and nonchalant and not needy when you have that many calls. Because if you're on a call today at 9:30 in the morning and you're talking with somebody and they're just not a perfect fit for what you do, you could say, hey, I appreciate talking with you, but it's just not a good fit. And they go, well, what do you mean? I want to give you my business. Yeah, but I've got 10 other calls today. I'm going to find somebody out of those 10 that's going to be the perfect fit, right? So you kind of get to the point where you start to reverse engineer it, and then you just go, hey, listen, whatever the goal is, I need to double it so that I make sure that I hit that goal. And then you start working your way towards it. And what I always like to say, Anton, is you're going to trade problems. You're going to solve this problem. Hey, I need more leads. I need more sales. You're going to create a new one. How do we fulfill on that? How do we build that? How do we maintain profitability? How do we expand?
Do we have enough people to work with these partners?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
And what I've just learned now is that, by the way, reverse engineering. A lot of people, when they start their strategy, they think about their problems, like how to solve the problems. And having your approach when you think about where you want to be and what you need to do in order to be there is, I think it's a great advice that people have to use a lot. And the second thing that I thought about is, your standards have to be so high that even if you fail, you don't fail. Actually, it's just kind of a misstep for you, but it's not a fail. You will not lose your business. You will not lose your authority. You will stay afloat. You'll be fine. And I feel like I will lose a huge opportunity if I will not ask you about success stories from this kind of meetings and this kind of approaches with your clients. Can you share with us some kind of a success story? So how it ended up in an interesting way, in a successful way.
Yeah. So I had a client who owned an agency. They were doing about $25,000 a month in recurring revenue, and they had big dreams. And they said, Dave, what do we do? We have no leads coming in outside of referrals. We are struggling to close sales, and we're not sure how to move forward. And so I sat down with them. It was right after the pandemic. I sat down with them and I said, okay, let's look at all of your service offerings, because they were doing what most agencies do. They're offering multiple services, right? I said, let's look at all your service offerings. Let's look at who's getting the best results. Let's look at what service is the most profitable. Let's look at what the team is built like. And as we went through that, we identified one service that they did really, really well. And so I said, hey, let's just offer this service. When we narrowed it down to that service, the other thing that I said was, okay, now let's come up with a great offer, something that sounds too good to be true. Let's offer them that. So the space that they were working in was, they're an advertising agency, and they're like, how do we get more leads? And I said, well, what's the biggest hindrance to people saying yes to working with you? Everyone's been burned by a marketing agency. No one's sure who to trust anymore. And I said, okay, cool. We're going to do two things on that. Number one, this is the first thing we can do out of the gate. What's a package that we can do that people can choose to opt into that doesn't cost them a whole lot of money, that we're not going to make a whole lot of money on, but we're going to be able to demonstrate our ability to hit them, with some success. So what we came up with was,
great if you start working with a new partner, right?
That's it. And so we said, we'll do 90 days of advertising with no minimum ad spend. So you could give us $100 a month for 3 months, and we will show you what we can do with that. Now, obviously, they're not going to make a ton of money, but the idea is to prove the concept, right? And so that was the first thing that we did. The second thing that we did was we flipped over their website. Everything was about, hey, we'll do this for 90 days. We'll prove it to you. Here's what happened.
Yeah. About the offer, right?
Yeah. So that was the way that we did the offer. 15 months. So we started in January. 15 months later, they were doing, in January of 2021, they did $25,000 in revenue. 15 months later, so April of 2022, they did $350,000 in monthly recurring revenue. What did they do? We niched down into an offer. You don't always have to niche down into an industry. We came up with a great offer that was very compelling. We used cold email outreach to generate 150 meetings plus a month. I think the actual number was like 120 from cold email alone. And then I started to train their sales staff so that they could close really, really effectively. I was teaching them the same methods. This kind of work is what led to that big hockey stick. Most companies are a few strategic moves away from getting to their wildest dreams. The owner-operator could not believe that we went from a $300,000 agency to that, at that time, that's what they had done the previous year, to in 2022, they did over $4.5 million in revenue.
I'll tell you more. A lot of people probably will not even believe in this type of growth, because I experience this type of things happening all the time. But a lot of people will will look at this percentage and be like very skeptic about it. But it's true. It's just the right approach, right?
Yeah, and I've some of the things that I've done too, Anton. I run cold email for myself, and I'll reach out to people. And we'll send them screenshots of text message conversations that I've had with actual clients. Some of my clients book meetings with PlayStation and Revolve Clothing and Microsoft. I mean, huge companies through cold email, through mid-length YouTube videos, through all sorts of different methods that we have. And they'll send me text messages. Hey, I just booked a meeting with so-and-so, and I'm talking to these people next week. And they're excited. So we'll take screenshots of that and we actually throw them into emails. And it's hilarious, Anton, because we'll get people responding and they're like, yeah, I can use Photoshop too. To which I'm like, hey man, if you're so skeptical about what's possible that you can't even imagine having a conversation with these companies, it's a good thing that we're not going to work together. Yeah, just it's a good thing. I'm like, great, thanks for DQing yourself. So the thing that's crazy is until you've done it, I've done it multiple times. It really is easy to grow a company once you understand how, but until you understand how, it is impossible.
Exactly. And I had this 1 year, one year we had a pretty much fast growth, and we had a number of 85,000 ROI revenue over marketing investor percentage. And everybody looked at that like, what kind of number is that? But the thing is that a lot of people still only think about authority marketing. They want to tell their potential partners how good they are, and they do it in a really good way. But they forget about things you just mentioned, like an offer. Have a good offer. Have something so your partners can start with. And that's so important. And a lot of companies just like, oh, we're so incredible, we're so good. We see that, but what's on the table? How can we do something? And it's very important to have this kind of a thing and focus on it, to have an offer which will stand out, right? Which will be
That's
unique
right.
and interesting for your potential partners. Otherwise, the competition is so bad, people will forget about you. So this is a great thing to mention today. I wanted to ask you about your leadership style. I'll be honest with you. Right now, we've spent about 40 minutes, and if somebody will tell me that I'll need to go somewhere with you and spend more time, I'll be happy to do that. What about your team and your leadership style? I'm just wondering, could you describe your leadership philosophy? Maybe give some tips, how it evolved, and also discuss the rise of digital and social media, how it impacted your marketing strategy. But mostly, I'm interested about your leadership style, and how do you do it with your team, with your partners, and how you stay approachable and busy at the same time.
Yeah, great question. So we run all of the companies with the same 6 core values, and the core values really drive how we run the companies, how we hire, promote, fire our staff, and also our clients, right? And so the 6 core values are in order with intentionality. So they have a way that we express them internally and a way that we express them towards our clients and customers. So the first one is tenacity. Hey, I'm going to find a solution to the problem no matter how long or how hard I have to work. I'm going to find it. The second is curiosity. I'm going to solve the problem by asking intelligent questions. Hey, how do we reverse engineer this? Hey, where do you want to be, Anton, in 5 years? The third is initiative. If something is broken, just go fix it. This is a thing that we talk about with the staff all the time. If something's not working, if there's an issue, go fix it. Like, you have the authority to go fix it. And that's a big thing that I believe in, is empowering your staff to go make intelligent decisions. I pride myself, and we pride ourselves on hiring smart people. Doesn't mean that they have industry experience necessarily. We hire smart people that can solve problems. That's a key thing for us. Number 4 is accountability. Listen, I want you to own the victories. Yeah, I did that. We got a huge win for a client. We made this sale. Awesome. And you're also going to own the mistakes. Hey, that was my bad. That's my fault, right? It goes both ways. A lot of times when we hear accountability, we only think of the negative. There's actually a positive accountability as well, right? The 5th is transparency. We want you to be yourself. Just be honest about what's going on in your life. Something going, did you break up with your boyfriend or girlfriend? I'm so sorry. Like, that affects your work, right? Is something not going well? Maybe something's going great in your life. You're just like, everything is up and to the right. Everything's amazing, right? Be honest with it. And that also works out in our expression towards clients. We're like, we will show them anything. There's no secret sauce that we're going to hide the recipe. We're like, we'll tell you everything. And we've had clients go try and duplicate what we do, and they can't do it. That's the beauty of digital marketing and advertising, right? And then the last one is humanity. So we think that businesses fundamentally were built for humans, for the planet, for the thriving of everything on this earth. And so it becomes toxic and an issue whenever we start to see it as a way to just improve the wealth of one person. This is one
Like
of
an
my
entity,
TikToks.
like a soulless entity, right?
That's right. And so it becomes the base note. So that's the order that we have them in on purpose. But to your point about the leadership, when we elevate someone into leadership, Anton, we tell them, and we don't say this until they get there, that their job now is to inverse the order of importance. Because in order to get into leadership, you have to have tenacity, curiosity, and initiative in spades. You have to be very, very good at it. But in order to lead well, you have to lead with humanity. You have to lead with transparency, and you have to lead with accountability. So what that means is you understand that every interaction you have with a client, with an employee, with a vendor, you're dealing with another person. And because you have a C next to your title, you intrinsically carry power. And so when you do that, you have to treat other people and elevate them higher. And then whenever you are transparent, everyone knows what's going on. There's no secret door. We're not hiding information from you. We'll tell you anything. And then when you are accountable and you say, hey, listen, that was my bad. I didn't set you guys up for success. We're going to make sure that doesn't happen again. It changes the dynamics of the team. They feel like they're being protected by leadership, not overlorded by them.
Yes, definitely. And a lot of people still think that this kind of core values, like company's mission, it's something you should put on your website so everybody would know about it. But the thing is, it's your team that's supposed to know these things and work by these things.
Right.
And it's a classic marketing approach. A lot of people forgot in this digital era, but now, well, your values should be supported by your team, by your company, and they should be inside of whatever you're doing, not outside, not showing off, with that or this. No, lead your team. That's right. So this sounds really exciting. This is why I want to ask you about your future ventures and your mindset at this point. Is there any new ventures or project you are excited about for the future? And what do you believe is the most important mindset for an entrepreneur to have to have these beautiful ideas that you have and to accomplish all these things that you think about?
Yeah, so for me, the future is I I want to help more entrepreneurs create businesses that promote the thriving of humanity. And a lot of times, so I have my own podcast, Anton, as we talked about, and it's called In Work. And so it's this idea of we need to talk about the things we need to do in work to be successful: marketing, sales, operations, finances. And that's what we usually talk about. We also need to do some inner work on ourselves. I've had, unfortunately, I've had in the past couple weeks, I've had two acquaintances, friends that are entrepreneurs that the economy took out their business, and they
It's
both
been a
took their
tough year.
lives.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my
and
God.
they both took their lives, and so this speaks to the inner work that we need to do,
Yeah.
um, because whenever we think that when we misevaluate that the business is who we are, if the business goes down, then why are we still here? And so we need to do the inner work. So a lot of the things that I want to do as we move forward is I'm releasing my first book in January. It's called The Marketer's Mind. It's stories from Fortune 50 chief marketing officers that I've been in the room with and chatted with, and single location coffee shop owners and how they market their location. So it's a compilation of stories and ideas and philosophies that have really guided me over the past 20 years in my career and have been a marker for future conversations. And so I'm excited to release that. I'm excited to do some more speaking. But I really think that it's time that we start to address, specifically in the West, how do we build businesses in such a way that it does benefit our employees, not just in words, but actually in deeds. And then also, how do we as entrepreneurs do what we're going to do, put ourselves out there without burning out and losing what's really, really important. And so that's what I'm up to right now. And I'm also doing some fractional CRO and CMO work where I'm sitting with owners of different companies and helping them figure out, hey, how do I go from doing $25,000 a month, $500,000 a month, and get to doing $10 million a month? What does that even look like? And so I'm enjoying spending that time one-on-one with clients right now, and getting to see the light bulbs go off and really find success.
Yes, and I totally understand what you're talking about, because a lot of it's been a tough year for the industry. It's been a tough year for a lot of people. Budgets are low, and it's the things that you actually do with other companies, with your clients, with your partners that help survive in this difficult era. Because for example, for our company this year, constant lead generation, marketing activities, and PR helped us to keep the new partners flow really high, and that helped us not only to survive but also to receive, so to get some growth this year. So it's very important, and I believe everything that Dave mentions, it's you have to stay human, you have to think about yourself, and as I just mentioned, just try taking care of yourself. This should come first. So yeah, and sometimes we fail anyway, right? We can, I mentioned this a lot, that 9 times out of 10, I fail at what I do. But at those 9 times, I just don't spend a lot of money on it. And then the 10th thing helps me. Do you have any examples in your experience where you turned a failure into a learning opportunity and that really helped you in the future? Like, you ever had these type of things in your life?
Yeah, of course.
It's a difficult one. Yeah, I know. It's hard to choose one, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I've been doing this 11 years now, right? And what I've figured out, Anton, is for the most part, every couple years, you're gonna have a really challenging season. Um, there have been times where that's been I had to fire a business partner who was also my best friend. Really painful. It's not always dollars, right? There have been other times where it has been dollars and cents. We all went through the pandemic together, where people weren't spending money really for a while, where we didn't know what was going to happen. I lost all my clients overnight, right? Because they were like, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We can't keep paying you. We can't even pay our own staff. So you're going to have things. And then this year, like, things were hard for everybody. Outside of some of my clients that I've been working with for a while that already had systems in place and were already doing pretty well, a lot of people had a big snapback, and so I think that it's having the mentality that you're going to encounter the problem. It's going to happen. The best Alex Hormozy has down months, like where they don't make as much as they did the month before. It is not all up and to the right. It's just not. So when it happens, now I have a little mantra that I love to say, and this too, or great episode. If you imagine that your life is a TV show, man, how is David going to get out of this one? I don't even know. It's going to be a great episode, man. Like, this is going to be fantastic. And if you just flip it and you go, I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this one. This one's crazy. This is nuts. I've had terrible things happen. I'm sure you have too, Anton. I've had people steal from me. I've had clients leave me with a bill for, 6 figures plus. They go bankrupt. There's nothing I can do. And so I'm just like left without $100,000 plus. There's all sorts of crazy things. I've been sued by people that had no right to sue me for no reason. I had to fight. I won, but I had to pay the money. These things are gonna happen. So as you encounter them, just say, I love everything, and this too. I don't know how I'm gonna get out of this one. It's gonna be a great episode. If you can find the light in there, it's gonna be really, really helpful.
You know what? You said a really, like, sometimes you find yourself in a situation you don't know how to approach it and you don't know how to find the way out. And what helps me is I had a lot of math in university. I didn't want to, but somehow it just happened to me. And when you start solving some kind of an equation, you don't know how to do it, right? But you make some steps and you kind of making it anyway. And I feel like for some people, it's normal. Like, you in that situation and you don't know the outcome, but you will eventually you will find the way out. And you said it's every 2 years that we have a crisis. I feel like it's every 6 months now, since like COVID, it's like 2 times a year. And people ask about our industry, like, do things change a lot? I'm like, yeah, a lot. And, we kind of have to adapt to this every time. And I feel like we have to be this, as I mentioned, we have to be this method actors. We have to react fast to everything that's happening around you. And as you mentioned, some people, like, for example, those huge companies in Canada who lose revenue, some people still believe that you don't need to change anything in order to evolve, in order to progress.
Right.
And that, I believe, those kind of things bring a lot of disappointments in their lives, because You have to study, you have to learn all the time. You can never be 100% competent. I'm finishing like 5 courses a year just to stay relevant, not to be
Yeah,
ahead of the competition, just to stay relevant.
that's
So
fair.
yeah, it's totally true. And there is always a way out of every situation, guys. Take care of yourself. So my last question for today is also about the future. I want to ask you like, you've had a lot of success. I like your philosophy about everything you do, and I feel like we can use an advice from you about future, about our future. So how do you envision the future of your career, of the industry, of businesses around you in next 5, 10 years? And what long-term goals are you working towards right now? Because it's a fast-pacing, fast-changing environment right now. It's really hard to say like everybody like talking about AI right now, like it's a big thing. But I believe like next big thing is just around the corner, right? And you can't like base all your strategy on AI or something like that. There is always something new. So what's your vision of the future and what you concentrated on? I want to steal your ideas, Dave.
Feel free. They're free to anybody. Um, we need entrepreneurs to save us. Entrepreneurs will do more with less than anyone I've ever seen. They will come up with ideas that have never been thought of previously. They will innovate in ways that we can't imagine. And we see this on a regular basis, but we need someone to carry it all the way through. So it's one thing to have a great idea and carry it through and to become exceptionally wealthy. It's another thing to say, I'm going to carry this idea through. We're going to improve everything, and I'm going to bring my staff with me. I think that we need really, really smart people to make investing and long-term goals available to more people. One of the things that I'm really passionate about, so in the US, 69% of the population is employed by a small business. We
That's
need
a
more
really
small
great thing.
business. It's a great number. We need more
Yeah.
small business owners to be really, really successful. We need more small business owners, period. And we need those business owners to be conscious capitalists. People that say, I want to make money. I see the goal of doing that. And as I do it, I want to make sure that we're protecting people, protecting the planet, and making the world a better place to live in. Can we take the innovation that we have, and I know that we can, that we have in the entrepreneurial community, and solve global issues absolutely without question, right? And so it's like we are a species that has come from nothing to air. We fly in the sky and we pretend like it's totally normal. And 100 years ago, people would think that that is crazy. They would think that is a thing that you do for military planes and for select elite people only, and it's accessible to everyone. We have tourists now that go to space.
Yeah,
So
New York Times had an article about that it's impossible to fly just 100 and how many, 20 years ago, that it's going to be
yeah,
impossible. Like no one will
right.
ever do this. Totally
No one will
on
ever
point.
do this. And so that's the reality, right? Is like we have the ability as a species to do unbelievable things, and we already have. And we need to take it into another place where we say, can we do this in such a way that it's going to benefit everyone? And so I really am passionate about helping entrepreneurs grow their businesses, to do it in such a way that they bring other employees along with them in benefiting from their wealth, and that's really what we're aiming for. And so the ways that I'm doing that now is writing books and speaking and doing my fractional CRO and CMO work. But I think that there's a lot of different ways to get there, and I look forward to changing and evolving my approach as my own platform and authority continues to grow.
Yeah, guys. And if you thought that all marketers, all business owners are totally like think about only themselves. No, it's not true. Shop local, buy things from like I do. Like I usually buy things from a local store because I want to support my neighbor and I want to support small businesses. And yeah, that's a really great advice. I will leave all information about Dave and his ventures in the description. Please connect Dave if you want any help with Dave. And Dave, thank you so much. It's a second episode, first episode of the second season, I mean, and it's been a a great start. And it's not only informational, but it's inspirational too. I feel like I want to work again, after this podcast, because I felt like, oh, hell with it. Now I'm like, no, I want to work. I want to go back to work right now. Thank you, Dave, for inspiring our audience and me. And just thank you for being with us, because it's been a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Anton. It's been super great. And I want to offer one thing really quickly to your audience, if it's
Oh,
okay.
sure. Yeah, I'm sure they will be interested.
If anybody wants 30 minutes of my time for free to pick my brain, shoot me an email, dave@davevalentine.co. Just mention the name of this podcast in the headline, and I'd love to give you 30 minutes of my time to work through any issues, problems that you're experiencing in your business to help you grow. So if you're interested in that, hit me up, dave@davevalentine.co.
And I will leave Dave's email in the description. Guys, it's free, 30 minutes of free conversation. You can describe your problems. You will find solutions out of that. So please contact Dave, contact us if you need our help. And thank you for being with us. Thank you for sharing this moment with us, Dave. And thank you, guys.